Hello, Trailblazers, and welcome to another edition of Entrepreneur Journey. Today, I am so pleased to have Shawn. Will you pronounce your last name for me? I meant to say it before we got on air.
Khorrami.
Khorrami. Shawn Khorrami with us. And Shawn is an amazing entrepreneur. He's been a serial entrepreneur since the age of 16 and has managed and grown multiple businesses. So I am anxious to get into his story. I could go on and on about his credentials, but we'll probably go over some of those in this interview. So once again, glad to have you, Shawn. And to get started, we like to get to know our guests a little bit more on a personal level. So I have some kind of getting to know you questions.
Okay, ready?
All right. So if you could have a meal with any four individuals, living or dead, who would that be?
Okay. Four. Ooh, these are, so number one would be Bill Gates. And the reason for that is he's one of the first guys as I was growing up that just, went from just starting this company to just blowing up and then ultimately becoming the richest guy in the world. And just the way he sort of traversed that and has continued to operate in business, operate in things that he believes in, and whether you agree with him or not, things that he believes in, advancing those things and sort of staying above the fray at the same time, kind of interests me about him. And so that's number one. Number two would be my dad, but I can still do that. He's still alive, but my dad 30 years ago. And the reason is that it took me a very long time. They tell you you'll one day have kids and you'll understand how terrible you've been as a kid, or I never understood that. I have a kid who's a lawyer now. That's how old she is. And it was only pretty recently that I understood what a handful I was. And so I kind of want to talk to my dad 30 years ago. And
actually listen this time.
Yeah, and just sort of say, you know what, I get it, and I'm so sorry, right?
Yeah.
And so number three, staying personal. Number three would be me 20 years ago. And the reason for that is that maybe I could get myself. Okay, I'll go on a tangent, just a teeny bit.
No, please do.
So. I always like to say, and I'll say the PG version of this, I have more guts than I have brains. And so I want to go back 20 years and talk to myself, and maybe I could get myself to listen and avoid some of the pitfalls that I had. Because they cause all kinds of issues in my life, right? In terms of what I did, particularly in business. And navigating through them, and I've learned from them greatly. But yeah, I kind of want to do that. And number four is kind of a corollary to that, is since I can't do that, the next entrepreneur I meet, would be very interesting to me, so I could actually help that person greatly. And that's kind of what I do, right? So that would be the fourth person.
And I'm sure everything that you share on this podcast is going to help all the audience that's listening to it. And that's the reason I do it, because we all can learn from the stories of where you came from and what you went through, in order to maybe your story helps them avoid some of the things that maybe held you back, or helps them dive into the things that helped you be successful, right? So
I certainly hope so. Yeah, that's what you hope, to give back and to actually be helpful to people.
My next question is, what song would you sing at karaoke night?
I've thought about this, and right now my life. So I told you I have a daughter that's a lawyer now, right? I have a little 1-year-old too, and my concept with kids a lot of times is they have to live in my world. I don't live in theirs. But at the same time, I'm compromising. I love musicals, but I said, okay, I'm going to go through some Disney musicals, and all that's in my head now are these Disney musicals, and in particular Aladdin, and Friend Like Me, which is what Robin Williams originally sang in the original Aladdin, and then Will Smith sang it in the more recent version. So that's what I would do, and I would do a terrible job at it, by the way, just so you
Well,
know.
I would love to see it nonetheless.
Yeah, we'll all laugh.
Staying in the entertainment field, who would you want to play you in the movie of your life?
I don't know if my life is worth a movie.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
um, the you know this I only related just because I like the actor is Robert De Niro.
Mhm.
And I think he has the flexibility, and I also think he plays some of the personality type that I have. I tend to be I tend to push the envelope.
Mm.
um, I tend to I always say, and I told you, I have more guts than brains, but I don't shy away from challenges. And so, that's, if there were ever a movie, I would hope that would be the case.
Oh, nice, nice. So 16 years old is when you started. That's crazy. What was your first business?
Okay, I'll give you some background on this.
Okay.
So I'm a first generation immigrant. I was born in Iran. You can tell from my last name, it's difficult. But so in Iran, my father owned his own business. He had a construction business. And with a lot of developing countries like that, especially where you have a situation where you have a big boom, you're going to have a lot of construction. So construction was a booming business in Iran. And my father actually built roads and, nice buildings and everything. There were plenty of government contracts, frankly, to do that, but private as well. From the age of like 7, 8, and 9, and I'm not sure if this was particularly safe, but he would take me to the construction sites. So I would hang around in these places, and I'm climbing all over bulldozers and what have you. I was just jazzed about this. This was everything. It was like being in a giant toy store.
Right.
So I just immediately took to construction. I just said, wow, this is what I want to do. It's fantastic. And this carried with me through my teenage years. It's funny because there was someone else I was talking to, and they were saying, "Oh, geez, I would never get into my father's business. The whole time I was growing up, I'd never get into my father's business. What did your father do? What did your father do? Well, he was had this insurance agency, boring stuff. I don't want to do that." Well, the guy ends up getting into his father's business and actually growing it into a big national company, and he never thought so. But I was the reverse. And I never, when I became an adult, I never got into construction, but this sort of carried with me. My father, when we immigrated and came to the US, he never really recreated his construction business, but he did manage to get his hands on a couple of small income properties. And at that time, there wasn't, it didn't warrant getting professional management. My father was not particularly good at managing these things. He's in a new country, new way of doing business, new economy, new language. And so it was failing. And this is right about the time that personal computers were coming into homes. Bill Gates, again,
Yeah.
one of the big reasons this happened, and same with Apple. So I sat there and created this sort of very simplistic database program that I helped, that I sort of started organizing things, and then I kept adding to it and adding to the things that I would do in these buildings. This is very quickly, I mean, in a very short period of time. And then what I ended up doing was marketing the same thing to his friends who were in the same boat. And this thing I started getting these different clients that wanted me to do these things on their little properties. And so I started having this business of managing various people's properties through my little software that I created, and through the services that I would provide. And
Wow.
it just took off that way.
Oh, nice.
So the funny thing is I never even wanted to do a business back then. It was just something that was interesting to me as I was going through high school. And I ended up getting rid of that business because I always believed in formal education.
Hmm.
So I went into college and I got rid of the business because it was distracting for me and at the size that it had grown. And so I went into college and did other things.
Nice. So that segues right into my next question. A little bit more. We've gotten a little taste of your background, so a little bit more about your education and your experience. Then, from that point to getting into other businesses and scaling those.
Okay. Yeah, so I was saying I really love. I still do formal education. As I've grown older, what I've noticed is I'm not sure it's for everyone. I'm not sure it's even a necessity if you want to have your own business or do anything in life, frankly. But for me, I loved that kind of environment. Sometimes I say, maybe it's because I was lazy and I just loved being in college and goofing around, which is what I kind of felt I was doing. But I also love that kind of intense cramming of knowledge into your brain. I just liked it. And I was not one of the guys that ended up in class a lot. So class was not something I did. If there was an attendance thing where I had to attend, I would show up. If there was an exam or something where I had to come and do that, I would show up for that. But that was basically all that would, my classes would see of me. I would study on my own. I would go through the text. I would cram the information into my head as fast as, the assignments were coming. And so I got a degree in mathematics. I got a degree in computer programming, which at that point I decided was pretty important and something in the future that I would need. Funny thing is, I even took typing classes because I felt back then, you had to actually, go take a class for this. And so I took typing classes too, one class actually, and to learn typing. And then I backed into, because I would take so many electives in economics. I found it to be, easy, honestly. So I took was taking so many classes. I ended up with a degree in economics. During that entire time, I had friends and classmates that were, you hear this, I want to go get a job in this industry or with this company or doing this kind of work for, whatever, and creating resumes for themselves, creating, pieces they could put on a resume, a different experience for themselves to do that. And in my head, it was never an issue. I sort of never thought about actually working for a company. And if funny thing is, fast forward a little while ago, I was talking to my wife because my daughter, the one that's a lawyer, was asking, how does my resume look? But asking some tips about this and that. And I said to my wife, I said, I've never done a resume to this day, and I've never received it. It's kind of uncommon. I've never received a W-2 from a company I haven't had ownership interest in.
Wow.
So I've never actually had that kind of a boss, right? So I went through. I got the economics degree. They kicked me out of school because I had too many units. They wouldn't let me stay in. So
Wow.
with that, I went and got a law degree after that. Since then, I've gotten formal training and formal education in accounting, in sales, in marketing, and all of it because I just sort of said, look, if you're going to do all of these things, you're going to need a skill set. And the fastest way I could get that skill set in my head, the easiest way, the thing that made sense to me was that. And you and I previously talked, and I said, one of the things I learned, and it was something that came up with me a lot, was I was deathly shy. Literally, through college, I never, not one time, raised my hand. This is in high school or college. Raised my hand to say, I have a question. Too shy to do that. Part of it was because I was deathly shy. Part of it was the experience that I had when I immigrated. It was a very turbulent time to be Iranian, and the relations with the US at the time were terrible. That didn't translate into kids treating you particularly well in the US. And so that was difficult. I was shy, and I was here with a new language, and that I learned the language pretty quickly, but that period of time was treacherous for me. And so it all snowballed into this thing where through high school and college, I literally could not stand up in front of maybe even 20 people. And I said to you, so if you walked around 20 people and you said, hey, everyone just introduce yourself and tell us which city you're from and what do you do? My heart would go bam, 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 bam. And when it came my turn to talk, I couldn't even hear myself talk. That's how nervous I was about doing that. I felt that, and the funny thing is that during that period of time when I was in college, part of what I did do when I wasn't in class and I wasn't studying was bodybuilding. So I did bodybuilding, and I did in one of your recent shows, you and Gavin Scott.
Yes, Gavin Scott.
You guys were talking about the iceberg.
Blowing the channel. Oh, the iceberg. Yes,
the iceberg, right?
Yep.
And 90%
what you don't see
below, and only 10%. Yeah. So I did all the below the water line of the iceberg, the 90% of the work, and I was a big bodybuilder. Did all the dieting, did all of those things, all the training. I never competed.
Huh.
And the reason I didn't compete was I couldn't stand up in front of people and do what I needed to do. I couldn't actually take part in a competition. From that day, like I already was aware of how terrible the situation was for me, but that thing of not participating, and I stole this from someone else, this little saying, I'll tell you this in one sentence: the biggest failure in life is failure to participate.
Ooh,
okay. And that thing where I didn't participate, that really got to me. And I said, I cannot continue. This is the one shortcoming, the biggest shortcoming that I feel I've identified, and I got to fix it. I got to do something about it. And that was one of my big focuses when I came out of college and went into law school. I said, I got to get over this. And I went and did everything I could to be able to speak in front of people and to be able to participate and not be shy about doing that, because of that experience where it held me back. Not even all the years that I couldn't raise my hand, but that experience really made a difference in what I do. And so, it's a story I've rarely told anyone. Even like I tell people, oh yeah, I used to bodybuild sometimes. Oh, did you compete? No, I didn't. I never ended up competing. I never tell them why. That's really the reason. So anyway,
can I dive into that just for a second before we go on?
Absolutely.
What can you talk about the steps? Because I'm sure there's other people that are entrepreneurs that have that shyness about them, or they're introverted. Can you talk about some of the steps that you took to overcome that?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of it was terrifying, which is I have to do this. I would sign myself up for doing speaking engagements, and I would labor over, like it would stop me from doing other things in my life for 2 weeks beforehand for giving a 5-minute talk, right?
Wow.
I'll tell you some of the things I did, but this reminds me of a movie. I don't know if you've ever seen Defending Your Life.
I have not.
It's an older movie with Meryl Streep and Albert Brooks. And in that movie, one of the things they show, because you're defending what you did in your life where you were afraid. And one of the things they showed was this guy, he was signing up, he had been signed up to do this talk in front of this big group of people that would have made a big difference in his career. And he never did it because he was scared of it. So this is a common thing. I know it's a common thing that happens to a lot of people. And that was something they showed over the course of, like, when he dies and he has to defend the things he did way back when. And this is one thing they showed as a fear that held him back in life. So for me, it was that, and this movie was concurrent with me realizing all of this stuff. Okay, so just so you know, so I went and got myself a speech coach. I went through therapy over it. I sat there and I would spend I have a daily planner to this day, same thing I had back then, where I would have things that I have to do that day and all that stuff all scheduled. I would have specific times where I am sitting there and going through, some exercise in order to get over this this thing that I have, this problem that I have. And so, some days it was like having a get together with a number of people, showing up at a meeting in my industry, and forcing myself to say stuff, raise my hand and say, hey, I have a comment, and coming up with crap to say, right?
Yep.
just to say something, just
Yeah.
that opportunity of speaking in front of strangers. And I would do this on a daily basis, some task where I had to do this. I went through a multi-months of coaching with a speech coach, which I mentioned, but this was over a prolonged period of time. And I came up with different speeches that I could give through that process too, where I could just fall back. If something happened, okay, say it this way. If something happened with this, say it that way. But it was a period of time that I went through it, and it was agonizing. It was very difficult. Today, one of my primary things is speaking in groups. That happens all the time, I'm perfectly comfortable with it. Some of the things you have to realize also is, the biggest thing you have in your heart when at least this is the way I felt, right, is I'm going to be really terrible at this, right? And people are going to be like, oh, what a boring thing this guy is talking about, and what nonsense is he saying, or I already know the stuff he's saying, or he's wrong, I know this better. And there's ways to address that, and to get over it, and those are skills that I had to develop, and also beliefs that I had to change inside of myself. That part of it was probably more difficult than developing the actual skills, but I ultimately was able to do it somehow, and here I am.
Nice. So do you feel like that overcoming that has really impacted your business and your life?
Humongously. But you also have to think about this. I believe that to be an important thing, right? And I believed it to be my worst shortcoming. That was the thing I was struggling with the most. And at the same time, I believed that this was the key, the biggest key to me doing anything, you see? So you, for example, in your life, you may say, well, you know what, speaking in public is not that huge a thing in terms of me succeeding. I truly, in my heart, have always believed that that's the case. In fact, with my kids, right? My kids would do things in school, and that the teachers would come to me and say, hey, your kid did this, can you address it? And sometimes I would say, no. And the reason I won't is I like that they took the initiative. I'll have to control this at some level, but I'm not going to address it the way you want me to address it. And with my teachers, with not my teachers, their teachers, I would say, look, please make them participate, because I don't want them to be not expressing.
Nice.
So for myself and the way I run my businesses, it is key. I have to get in front of people. I believe in getting in front of people. I believe in giving speeches. I believe that's the way I can teach. That's one of the things I do. I believe that's the way I get clients. I believe that's one of the key ways I get to get into startups to invest in them, which is one of the things I do. So, because of that, I'm very forward in that kind of thing where I speak in front of people, and then it has become incredibly important in my life.
Yeah, that's a huge lesson just from that about attacking your shortcomings, right? And being able to get past those. And I think just grow as a person can help you grow your business. So thank you so much.
The funny thing is that's exactly what I was doing the whole time. I'm getting all the degrees, I'm getting all this stuff, I'm doing all these things, and I'm addressing what I feel I'm short on. When I went and got formal education in accounting, I wanted to understand the finances of the business, all of those things. And so this was part of that, but it was the most difficult part.
Can we talk about a particular story of a business that you've helped that you might want to share that?
So I have my own businesses.
Okay.
I've done all kinds of stuff when I since the time I got out of school, where I've grown businesses to 8 and 9 figures on my own. But I guess here, recency always governs in my head, right?
Okay.
Just before we started, I was on the phone with a client, and we're investing with them in this venture, and so we literally signed a contract 6 months ago. This is a company that has it sells consumer products, okay, but they have no direct to consumer business at all. They sell through a wholesale market. Those wholesalers spread things around, and then you'll see their stuff in markets and stores that you go to. You'll see some of their brands. So they have that kind of consumer relationship where they have a brand that's recognized, but they have absolutely zero consumer customers. Okay, so this is 6 months ago. The second thing is they have they at the time had no online presence, almost none, certainly none with consumers. So what they wanted to do, and this is what we ventured with them on, is developing an online consumer business. Okay, so totally different from what and the funny thing is, as much as they're recognized as a brand, they don't have any relationship with consumers directly. So what we did in that situation was not only did, and you got to also think about this, a company that's selling products and has only a wholesale relationship business going, they're used to these big warehouses that they have. Trucks come in, pick up full truckloads of stuff, and they go to whatever customer's place. That customer then, separates these things out, puts them out in stores where you go and pick up one thing, right, as a consumer. So just the logistics of how you deal with a consumer, because the first thing is they thought, oh yeah, okay, great, consumers know our products, they're buying them already. Okay, fine. If this understanding they didn't have. We went to I said, well, okay, that's great. So let's say consumer says, send me a jar of this. How are you going to get that to the consumer? Right? They don't have that. They
Right.
have these things sitting in cases and cases, and they have big pallets and they have big forklifts and everything, but they don't have any capacity to take one thing out, put it in a box, and send it over to the consumer. And I said, oh, by the way, you have regular shipments that go out to these wholesalers, don't you? Once a month, once every week, once every 2 weeks. You have them on a schedule. Boom, boom, boom. This is what they're ordering, and you know the stuff's coming. Yeah, a consumer wants it today, now. That's today's consumer. They want it at their door. They want to click and have it at their door. So how are you going to do that? Okay. So now you're beginning to understand where we are with this. And not only that, the consumer may be across the country, even if you want to just sit in the US and do it. So because they're going to get on your website, they're going to say, okay, I want one of these. What are you going to do? Out of stock? What are you going to say? I'm not sending it to you because you're in such state. How much of that are you going to endure? And what kind of customer satisfaction situation are you going to have? Now, let's say the consumer gets this jar. Let's say you get through all of that stuff, right? And you get it there. And the jar is broken. They want to return it. Who do they talk to? Who do you have? Okay, so when you look at something like this, as someone, even the business owner of that business, and they've been doing it for a period of years, they say, and they're recognized as a brand. Even then, they hadn't gone through this process of, oh, I won't be able to do this. This is not easy. Not only that, and then they have, okay, well, where are you going to sell these things on? How are you going to get customers? So what we did was we created an online presence for them. This is just in 6 months, okay? We had to change around their logistics, make sure that they can actually service these customers, make sure they have a customer service situation, pretty quickly, and then make that more and more efficient as we go on, so that their margins are improving. And then and actually increasing sales during that time. So with that company, I'm very proud of it because it's only been 6 months, this venture we've done together. And we're running their online business, basically. That's what we are, what my company is. We've gone from zero, from having no logistics, no customer service, no anything. And we're on pace to have 7 figures in sales in the next couple of months. Not only that, we've solved their logistics problem, we solved their customer service problem, all from zero. And I'll tell you one other thing we did. We did it on, sorry, I was going to say zero, because to me, it's kind of like zero. $200 is the only marketing budget we've spent. $200.
Wow.
And the reason it's $200, we took one product. We wanted to just do a 1 week like pay-per-click test on this one thing, very specific thing. And you know, within $200, we kind of had an idea of what we wanted to do, and then we went forward with it. So very proud of that result. And it's, again, I said recency governs, but that's one of the stories that I have.
That's really cool. A question about that. So one of your companies, that's what they do. They help people that don't have an online presence create an online presence.
So
am I correct in that?
What we do. Yeah. So I look at it a little bit differently. What I look at is we help small and medium-sized businesses through education, consultation, and investment. Okay. Now that's a very general thing, but what we want to do is we want to open up different sales channels. Okay, because as a business, especially small and medium-sized businesses, you know, you're in a different place than some of these larger businesses. Not only do they have more money, but the larger businesses have a lot more stakeholders, and those people have a lot of incentive to make sure that business doesn't fail. And there's a lot of push and pull to keep those businesses alive that in a small business you don't have, and you're kind of out there bare and alone. And so what happens is we want to get into those things. We want to help the business a lot of times with becoming partners with the business, and then opening up different sales channels and different ways of stabilizing their income, increasing their income, and increasing their margins. So nice. That's part of what we do. So we do it through exactly that story that I gave you. I'll give you a very quick other story if you have time.
Sure. Yeah.
So let's take a humidifier company. Okay. This is right when COVID hit. Okay. COVID hits, humidifier company. We start corresponding with them. I forget how we actually got put in touch, but anyway. And your immediate thought is, oh, humidifiers, that would be a great time when COVID hit, right? Because there's this instant, oh, I got to keep healthy. I'm at home. I want to keep my, the home environment nice. And, there's this health component to it. But these guys were struggling like crazy. And they had done very well selling humidifiers. And suddenly they were having all kinds of challenges. One of the challenges was their supply chain. They were getting these humidifiers from China. And they had they're a relatively small operator, even though they're selling thousands of dollars of these humidifiers every month. They suddenly had a big problem getting these things from China over. So big, huge problem. Their customer satisfaction issues that are associated with that they're going to have. And then we asked them, well, okay, so you sell humidifiers. What else do you do? Nothing else. So you have essentially a one-off relationship with the customer. And so one of the big things they weren't taking advantage of, and this is in a lot of ways they should have been taking advantage of it, but they weren't, is marketing to their current customers. People who are satisfied with you, who have had a relationship with you, they're the easiest people to market to because they at least have received something from you. They're saying, okay, I'm happy with that. Hey, I know these guys. They're good guys. I'll buy something else from them, right? That's the easiest marketing you can do. That's the cheapest marketing you can do. And one of them anyway. So immediately we were saying, well, wait a minute, why no relationship? And then what are they doing? They not only have one-off sales, they don't have anything that's predictable. They're hoping the next new customer that they acquire buys another thing, and the next new one, and the next new one, right? And so the first thing we did was we changed around their supply chain. It jacked up the price of their goods because they were not. We brought it kind of local, but we felt as an emergency measure it was important to do. The other thing we did was we said, okay, where's your subscription business? Where is your monthly recurring revenue? Where are your MRRs? Because this business definitely has it. Why aren't you selling essential oils? Why aren't you selling filters? You know, all the things that immediately you need with that humidifier, and things you can that are repeatable, right? So to the same customers, oh, okay, we can send you these essential oils once a month. You know, pick how many you want, and we're going to keep sending them to you. What does that do? That not only creates another stream of income, not only does it create also a predictable stream of income, because now you got them on a subscription, right? Every month they're getting stuff, right? But it immediately takes up your customer satisfaction. Why? Because now you have not a one-off sale where something goes wrong and the person's returning it. Oh, geez, this thing was terrible, blah, 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 blah. Now you have this thing where I'm dealing with these guys every month. They send me these things on the clock, and they have this relationship with you. And so you have better customer reviews. You have a better, more solid relationship with these customers. And then you can also start selling them other related products. You're not just selling them humidifiers, other things that are related to, you know, health at home, right? You can sell them soaps, you can sell them candles, you can start expanding that product line. Which is what, you know, this particular company became very interesting to us because we felt we can just take that and scale what they're doing. We could invest in it. It was the right time to do it. They were all online. They were doing this health thing. We have COVID that hit, you know, and we just felt it was just the right time to do that. And so that was the thing that we were able to open up for them. We opened up other sales channels because a lot of times small businesses, they sit there, but they're just selling through their website and they're saying, okay, that's it. In today's world, that is not going to be enough. You're gonna need to at some point open up new sales channels, which is tough to do. And then when something's going right, you're you keep going at it, and you should, but also to, you know, the way you're going to really scale up those sales is to you know, open up the number of channels you're using, and then look at where you're dealing with your current customers, you know, so that you can create upsell, cross-sell, subscription, you know. And people always, every time you talk to someone, you say, well, my business, geez, you know, I don't know, there's not, how do I get them on a subscription? And I always give this example. It's a friend of mine that I consulted with as well. I've worked on their company as well. But they sell underwear on a subscription. So if they can sell underwear on a subscription, then you can sell anything on a subscription. And that's you know, what I sort of use as an example. But those are the kinds of things we can do to help small and medium-sized businesses.
Yeah, I can relate to that story because I started my agency, started it building websites, right? And websites were a project. So business comes to us, they want a website. Okay, we built a website. You pay us for us. Now that's the end of the relationship, right? So then I realized it was my passion to help them grow their business anyway, from a digital marketing perspective. That's really where my scaling would happen, would be creating those retainers, a subscription service, basically. So yeah, I could definitely relate to that. If I was just selling websites to this day, I wouldn't be a business.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like you look at the funny things. You should bring up that I know of an entrepreneur who started building websites in the 90s, and you know, for businesses. And back then, all it was helping them put together a website, and then you know, some way of getting the customer to pay for something. He ended up cookie cuttering that website part, and then putting together a cart, you know, and people could, you know, get various services, right? That business grew hugely. You get to about 2010, that business is a dying business as that as just doing that. Why? Because the Shopifys of the world during the past
Wix.
5-7 years, right? Yes.
Yeah.
They started doing what? They started adding all kinds of different services, right? Okay, so now you want a cart, you want a payment thing for the customer to come and pay for things. Okay, we're gonna do that. Oh, how about your taxes, your sales tax? So because of because of that happening, today's e-commerce customer, expects you, the platform, to do everything and just let them sell. That's what they want to do. They want to just sell. And so when you're developing, when you're actually, you have a platform and you're doing all of these, you're going to have to put together all of these different services that, for example, Shopify offers, right? Shopify says, oh, you want marketing services? Sure. You want to connect to Facebook? Sure. You want to, all of these things. And by the way, and this is something that comes up a lot. These are not things that Shopify has in-house. Okay.
Right.
They're partnerships. It's a partnership program. They say, oh, you want to do sales tax? Okay, let's go get this sales tax service. This one SaaS that calculates your sales taxes for you. We're going to partner with them. We're going to have an integration with them. And so when you, as the e-commerce company, come to them, they say, oh yeah, sure, we have a partner. Pick from these partners who you want to have your sales taxes done through. Pick from these partners how you want to do your logistics. Pick from these partners how you want to do your marketing. And all of those are partnership programs. So part of what like, for example, we've done for a company like that, a platform like that, is go in and say, okay, let's build your partnership program, because without that you have nothing. And when you look at Shopify, a big percentage, upwards of 80% of their revenues come from that partnership program.
Wow.
So you see, like in that situation, you have a product that sounds great, that you can market, but without all of those partners, you have nothing. Shopify would have nothing without all those partnership programs, and so that network is incredibly important, and it's nothing that Shopify has developed. It's other people developing. One of the big things people do on Shopify right now is build apps for Shopify. That's a whole business. There are people that have businesses, that's all they do. But ultimately, a lot of people are not very tech savvy. What has happened is you have all of these people that are taking the tech, right? So people like yourself, right? They're taking care of the tech and handing you this thing where you can deal with life without the complications. At the same time, there's other people that become skilled at, well, okay, so you go to someone that's building a website, right? They're skilled at Wix. They're skilled at Shopify. That's what they're skilled at. And they will move you to those platforms because they're most comfortable with the way those services work. And they will, build a website for you a lot of times. So anyway, I mean, it's fascinating how that happens. But immediately, that same business where you think, oh yeah, I have all the tools. The funny thing is, the founder of that business came to us and said, we're doing this entire new product, okay? And it's faster than what Shopify has. It's more customizable and all this stuff. And it's something that, by the way, we can talk about later if we have time. He was completely not seeing it because he felt he had a great product, and he did. But that's what the product is in his mind. I said, have you listened to the market? The market does not want this customization stuff where they sit there and code stuff. Okay. No one wants to sit and do coding for their e-commerce business, right?
Nope.
And so I said, this product, the way you have it, is not marketable because you cannot get anyone to pay for it. So in your mind, your product is great, and it probably is, but the market doesn't think so. And don't substitute your own opinion of the product for that of the market's.
I totally agree. You have to continually have your ear to the market and how the market's always changing too, right? It's evolving, like with technology and everything else.
Yep.
So.
Yep. That's a situation where the market evolved from underneath this company. They were doing a fantastic business, and suddenly everything shifted from underneath them.
Well, you have to adapt at that point, right? You gotta
Yeah,
change what you're doing.
yeah, that's exactly what they ended up putting together, so they could actually do that.
Nice. So now I want to ask you some questions around your particular expertise. What do you feel are some common misconceptions about entrepreneurs and businesses in general when it comes to scaling?
Okay. This is something I tell people, and I'll give you an example, but after I tell you. Your product is not your business, but your business is your product.
Mm.
Okay? And this happens, the clearest way I know how to describe it is in the professional setting, in professional services setting. You go to a dentist and you say, what's your business? He says, well, it's fixing people's teeth. That's what I do. I do these things to people's teeth and fix them up. Okay, great. That's not your business. That's the product you're giving out, right? That's the service you have. It's not your business. And time and again, professionals in particular like that, professional services in particular, they equate the service or the product they have as their entire business. Your entire business is, who you have working there, how they deal with your patients, how are you getting your patients, what kind of services are you selling to those patients? Because just fixing teeth is not what you do. There's specific things you do. There's teeth whitening, there's pulling teeth, there's veneers, there's all kinds of stuff. And they have different profit margins. There are services that insurance covers and services insurance doesn't cover, right? Some of them are cosmetic. You have to pick and choose exactly what kind of client you want, right? And what kind of services you're providing and how to deal with your margins in that thing. All of those things that you do, the way you market, the way you present yourself, the way your staff is, the way your office looks, all of that is your business. And it drives your entire revenue. By the way, that is your product too, right? That is what you offer to the world. That is the thing that you give to the world, right? In the Shopify example, right? What is your business? It's not, oh, we do websites for e-commerce people. No, that's not. It's all that partnership program, right? All of the different services you provide and how you deal with people and how you get them to succeed as a business, all of that. So what ends up happening and the misconceptions that occur is that there's too much of a focus on, oh, okay, here's a great product. And not enough of a focus on, no, my entire business is my product. My product, however, is not my entire business. That realization where, what you put into developing this thing that you're doing, this product that you have, versus what you put into sales, marketing, partnership programs, whatever, all of those things, there has to be a balance. And there's huge amounts of misunderstanding of how that works as you scale the business, because that becomes more and more and more and more important as you go along. The other thing, there's tons of things, right, that are misconceptions, but it's the example I gave, which is, don't mistake your own opinion of your product for that of the market's. Okay, whatever you think you're doing, you may have you say, oh, this is a big need, people need this, and then you go test it out with the market and like, I don't know about that, I'm not sure about that. The market tells you that, right? So just because you believe the product is good, just because you believe it is the way it is, doesn't mean that's what the market thinks. And keep in mind something: Google did not start out as this big giant search engine when you go and find whatever you want on it. Facebook did not start out as this social media, and business, frankly, place. Amazon started as a bookstore. How much money do they make from books today, right? Compared to the rest of their business, how many of their employees are selling books today versus the rest of their payroll, right? Out of the 1.5 million people that they employ, right? So that thing that you think, oh, okay, this is the product, and then that's what we end up with at the end of the day after I scale it and I end up doing this and the other, that is that's one of the big misconceptions. that come along with scaling. And so, those are the things we sort of like, as a general rule, I like keeping in mind as we go along, shaping a company and keeping it focused, and at the same time keeping it flexible so that it grows properly.
Wow, some really, really solid points. I really love that. My next question is, what are the critical skills that an entrepreneur needs in order to scale a business?
I always look at one myself, because I always say, whatever, I've never heard a story that I haven't myself personally experienced as a business owner. Honestly, I haven't. And again, it goes back to having more guts than brains. But it's true. But despite the fact that I constantly am sitting there and developing skills for myself, when I look at another human being and I say, oh, geez, let's look at this business that we want to help, or we want to invest in, or we want to partner up with. What I look at is what leadership skills do they have? Because that's a whole different thing than managerial skills, by the way. Okay, what leadership skills do they have? Because this thing, if it's going to grow, that founder or that entrepreneur is going to have to, it can't be everything to the business, right? And as the business grows, it needs to get more expertise in more focused areas, more detailed areas, to keep on expanding and keep on doing better. So your expertise, as a marketer, as a salesperson, as a whatever, all of those things that you actually do have become less and less relevant when you really have to get the top marketer in the world or the top marketer in the city to do that stuff, and at the same time, that founder can't be all over the place. They're spread thinner and thinner. So leadership is incredibly important. A lot of times you walk into a business and you see, and I'm very much generally against this, a flat reporting structure, right? You have all these VPs, whatever, executives, however way you want to have the C-suite, and they're all reporting to the founder. 50 people, 20 people, 10, even 10 people, right? And to me, that's a sign that we don't have a proper, there's some problems with the hiring there, right? Because again, that focus is just way too diverted. This person is talking to way too many people, and things aren't going to be getting done. So, that's very important, and how they can build a team, take their own ego out of it. Ultimately, a lot of times as founders and entrepreneurs, we came up with an idea, right? There are other people that are better at pushing the different aspects of this idea than we are. Right, and having to be able to have enough humility and be in control of the ego enough to say, yeah, that's true, and then building a proper team to push that forward. The second thing I look at is flexibility. Some flexibility. Someone who is sitting there saying, "This is the product." When we just talked about it, right? This is the product. This is the way it's going to go. Like, I'm not sure we're going to be able to do business, because this is going to develop things. That doesn't mean you're not going to be true to yourself and you're not going to be true to the product and all of those things. But it does mean that the product may service a different kind of market. It may need some extras. It may need some additions. We may need additional products, all of those things. And so I look for flexibility and that team building first. And then you look at what industry are we in, and then seeing, different skills that we need to develop. But I mean, we can go on and skills that people
nice.
need.
Yeah. I really liked what you had to say about ego, because I really feel like as founders, that often can come into play. Like we saw our vision in our head when we first started a business, and when it starts to not so much be the vision that we originally intended, even though it's a better vision, you can get a little stubborn, onto and in our ego. So I can definitely see that. So where should entrepreneurs focus their efforts if they want to succeed, both the short term and the long term?
One is go out there and do it. I said this at the beginning, the biggest failure in life is the failure to participate. You got to go and do it. And a corollary to that is, I always say this, is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Okay. And this is something I've said. You're always trying to make your product better. You're always trying to make your service better. You're always trying to improve. But you can't let that stop you from doing things, from putting out the product, from starting to service customers and moving everything forward, moving the business forward. Too often you see someone just sitting on the sidelines saying, I'm getting this thing ready. I'm going to have it out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it never gets out. Okay. So that to me is a big issue, and to not let that happen. Then the other thing that, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, can I dive into that a little bit, because I'm
Yes.
big on this.
Yes.
Imperfect action, right? You got to take action. You can't just sit. But at the same point, you've got to come back and refine that imperfect action. I always like to point that out when I'm talking to my clients, is that, yes, you need to take action. But at some point, if you keep shooting the free throws the wrong way, you got to come back and make sure you're doing it right.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you can never say you're perfect. You're not. But the reverse of that happens to people a lot of times is that, oh, this is not good enough to do something with yet.
Right.
And therefore I can't do it. I see this happen. There's vendors we have right now, and a few of them right now that we work with, where they've gotten out a product, and we're working with them in order to improve their product. We're one of the first customers. We're one of the first adopters of the product, and so they've gone out and they understand there are imperfections in their system. They understand that they have to do things, and so but they're at the same time getting the most important thing, which is feedback from the customer. What do the customers want? Because all of this stuff is in your head until someone else is talking to you. So you need to do both. You're absolutely correct. You have to keep improving the product, make sure that you're working out the kinks, but at the same time, you can't let that perfection, that desire for perfection, be the enemy of the good, which is getting and doing things.
Yeah, I'm sure there's countless stories of companies going out with an inferior product, but they're first to market, and then just improving it along the way. Meanwhile, someone that had to have that perfect product never got to launch because the other company beat them to market.
Happens all the time. Happens all the time. Yeah, the funny. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. I want you to expand on that.
No, the funny thing is, I have a friend who makes documentaries, and one of the things that happened was they were making. It's one of the first documentaries they were making, and this thing took years and years and years, and mostly because they weren't putting out any product. They weren't going out and marketing and saying, hey, look, okay, here's this documentary we got. And so, they kept pushing back the release date, but it took years and years and years. And I think that's a situation where they let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Mm-hmm. Where at some point they should have just said, okay, here we go. We have a product.
Right. Yeah. So what final thoughts do you have to motivate entrepreneurs to take business to the next level?
So, and this probably holds back people a lot, is don't let failure stop you. Don't let failure either way. The fear of failure stop you from moving forward. And after it happens, for you to stop. I go back to what you were talking about with Gavin Scott, who clearly had one big situation happen to him. I think he said in 2018, pretty recent, right? He's going, this guy's swimming the Strait of Gibraltar, right? Today, right? So don't let that that failure discourage you from doing things. Learn from it, move forward. No one starts out wanting to fail. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if it happens, when it happens, learn, move on, and keep going. The other thing is something that probably for us recently, right? COVID happened, right? Some businesses were tailor-made for COVID. Putting health aside, but the Amazons of the world were tailor-made for a situation like that. But other businesses were not. And the people that actually were, some people took to cover and they hid, and others said, "What can I do?" And they found opportunity. Even in a situation like that, totally unprecedented disruption, a total destruction to the economy. Even in those situations, there's opportunity. And so always look for that opportunity and take advantage of it, and know that it's there. Know it's there. No matter what happens, there's an opportunity there, and take advantage of it. And in fact, with COVID, we actually started writing for a little guide on what people can do, me and a couple of my colleagues, and we ended up with an ebook. And then when we looked at it, we said, this isn't just COVID. This is like how to anything proof your business. That's what we wrote, is what we decided. And so we came out with this ebook during that time, only because we saw COVID, but then we tried to write for COVID, and then we ended up writing for a situation where you can anything. We called it anything proof your business. By the way, for your audience, if they want to get in contact with me, I'm happy to give them a copy of the ebook for free, no obligations. Just get in contact with me.
I was just gonna ask about that, because I'm more than willing to put the link to that ebook below if you want to do it that way, or we can have them reach out to you. But I'm sure a lot of people would be very interested in that ebook. Yeah,
just go to connectwithshawn.com. Since my last name is tough, I did it that way. Connect with Shawn, SHAW, and you'll be able to download a copy of the ebook through there.
Well, I want to say thank you very much, Shawn, for being on here. I have learned a lot myself, and I'm sure our audience has. And I love the story that you had to tell, especially about overcoming that crippling shyness. I'm sure like I said, a lot of entrepreneurs probably struggle with being introverted or having shyness and not being able to move forward because of it. And I think they're going to pull a lot from that story, and as well as from your expertise. Can you tell us a little bit more about learning more about what you do and where someone from my audience would go to find out more about you?
Yeah, the funny thing is, because of all of these, the businesses that I started, and frankly, a lot of times the failures that I had friends and family and friends of friends constantly come to me and say, "Hey, this happened to me. How do I fix it?" And so I actually ended up putting site just for that purpose. And so I did this Khorrami Consult site, where it's only for that, and there's different things that I've written that help with different scenarios, and also that people can reach me through there. My company where we do investing and consulting and education for small and medium sized businesses is ePlaybooks, and so we do a lot of that through that outfit. But both of them have all kinds of resources where you can actually read up and just get things for free. And I'm happy to talk to people, especially, like I said, if they mention your audience, I'll sit down with them and look at their particular situation, any one particular situation, and I'll help them strategize at no obligation, no charges. I really just want to help people. Nice. And so nice. If they just mention that'll be the trigger.
So do that. Mention Doug Greathouse and the entrepreneur journey, and reach out to Shawn, because I feel like it is worth a conversation, and he'll give you perspective on your business that you probably didn't even know going into the call. So thank you again, Shawn. We're going to put any links that you would want below the video so that people can reach out to you. Any other things that you want to tell our audience?
No, happy to talk to anyone, and it's been just a pleasure being on the show here.
All right. Thank you again, Trailblazers. And until next time on the Entrepreneur Journey, I will see you later.